Okay, so hi everyone. Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about making games. Just a quick overview about what I'm going to be talking about. So first of all, a little bit of an introduction about myself, what's involved with making games, different specialties in the industry, particularly with in relation to game art, as that's kind of where I've spent most of my time in the industry so far. How I got into the industry. Time for some questions, and then afterwards, if you want to join in, there is a concept art challenge which I can leave with you guys. So first of all, a little bit about myself. My name is Paula. I've been in the industry for over 10 years now. I've worked on and released over 10 games, plus a bunch more that are still in development, with the most recent one being Dungeon Golf, where you are playing crazy golf in a dungeon with a range of different characters. And throughout this talk as well, I'll be showing a few different things that that we worked on in Dungeon Golf and different characters that we used as well. Cool, so you like games and you want to make them, that is fantastic. I am always such a big supporter of people who really love games and just want to find out how to make them and find out like how to get involved with them. There are so many different elements, as I'm sure you guys know already. There's stuff like coding and even things like community management, art, design, producing, audio stuff, so many different elements that all make up a game. There's a link there as well, which you guys can check out. That lists a lot more of the different specializations that you can get involved with. But for this talk, I'm just going to be focusing on the art side of things, as that's where all my experience lies. So I'm art lead at the studio I work at. So what does that actually mean? What that means is making sure that everything has to look consistent throughout the game. So whether it be characters, environment stuff, or just the game look as a whole, it's all about making sure that everything looks, feels consistent and makes sense to players. Guiding and giving feedback as well. Because games are usually quite complicated to make, there's usually quite a few other people involved as well. So I make sure that everyone's got what they need so that they can do the best job possible, and so we can all pull together and make some cool stuff. I work in an indie company. What that means is that because it's a small company, I'm what you consider a generalist. So I do a lot of different things, right from concepting all the way through to modeling, rigging, animating, texturing, and then putting into the game. I'll cover a bit more about each one of those things a little bit later on. Pipelines, it's the kind of more boring aspect of things, but super important. What it means is basically when you're taking it from the concept stage all the way through to getting it in game, making sure that there is a smooth line between each part of the process. So that everyone knows what they're doing and everything is going to run okay when it's on either your computer or a Switch or whatever you're building for. And fixing stuff when it breaks, because games are notorious weird stuff to make, and there's a lot of weird technical stuff that comes up. So it's my job to figure out what's going wrong and how to stop things like that happening. Why making games is cool? I mean, as you guys are already involved with this, I think you guys probably think it's pretty cool anyway, but bringing stuff to life that didn't exist before, I think is one of my favorite parts about making games. And working with alongside other people who are making cool stuff is just such an awesome aspect of making games and working in the industry. Because it's a creative and inspiring field, everything's always changing, and there's so many ideas that we can bounce off each other as we're working together as a team. And that's why I think I've been in the industry for as long as I have, and intend to continue. So for here, this is some concepts that I've done, and through some more stages of this process, and I'll be delving into them shortly as well. So yes, go back. There we go. Yeah, so here's some more concept stuff, exploring how the character would interact, what the golf club would be like, because it's a fantasy game as well. We wanted each character to have a different golf club that related to them, but wasn't just a straight normal golf club. So I did a bit of exploration, visual exploration through that. And then after we decided as a team that we liked this character, I went on to modeling it. So this is in ZBrush. So you do some sculpting and make it actually in 3D. And then after that, getting some textures in it using programs like Substance. Also Photoshop you can do as well for painting textures. Rigging and animating so that the character can actually come to life. And then doing some marketing and portrait illustrations. And then finally getting the character into game. And as you can see, there's a lot of other elements there, such as like, the environment and stuff as well. Cool, so a little bit about the scope of the industry. I'm not sure how much you guys know already, but I thought I'd just dive into it. So when I said before that I work for an indie company, what that means is that it's usually a smaller company that is independently owned versus AAA, which is a much larger company. So yeah, indie games typically have 50 or less people working for them, and AAA can sometimes have hundreds or thousands of people spread across the globe. What it means as well for generalization for your skills, when you're working in a smaller team, it's more likely that you are going to be working on a wider range of things as there's less people to do it, versus when you're in a larger studio, specialization is a lot more common, which means that you focus just on one aspect of it and get that looking as good as possible. But because there's so many more people on the game, it gives you sort of a more in-depth version of stuff. Neither are right or wrong, it's just different ways of doing stuff in the industry. So just giving a little bit of a breakdown about concept art. What is concept art? This is usually one of the most popular parts to do in game art because it is pretty fun. It's using your imagination, visual problem solving, and giving options to choose from. So you want to be presenting visual options for your team about different characters, about different environment stuff, so that people can get a good idea. It goes from usually being a bit of writing on paper or an idea about what character you want to create or what environment that we need to do for this game. And then it's your job to actually create the work for that. Here as well, you can see there are a range of different options for this robot character on the right-hand side. So that your team can look through and say, oh yes, like we like the legs on this one, or we like the feeling of this one, or the silhouette of this one. And then through that, you can iterate so you can come up with the perfect version of the character you want to create. A few starter questions I ask, especially when I'm designing characters, is just trying to figure out the basics of what this character is. So age, height, physical characteristics, who are they, what do they want, what do they like, what their personality is, what the world they exist in is, and what purpose do they serve in the game. Having an answer to all these questions, I think, is really important because it means that you can actually design something that is fit for the purpose that you want in game. There's no point spending, 20 hours on something that will only be seen for half a second. But if it's the big boss character, it's something that you want to make look really cool, or if it's the main character, you really want to hit those things and answer those questions so that players can know exactly what you're trying to communicate. Cool, and then a little breakdown about modeling and texturing. So modeling is making things in 3D programs. So Blender, Maya, 3ds Max, and ZBrush are just a few ones that you can use, usually from a concept, and then turning them from that 3D model into a textured one. So as you can see on the left-hand side, the camper van there looks pretty grey and flat and not particularly interesting. And then next to it is the version with the textures on it. So it really brings to life, all the different details and stuff that you don't necessarily need to actually model into the model. The reason you don't need to model everything in is a lot of it comes down to performance. So making sure that it actually, runs on your computer and actually, players can use it without, the phone getting too hot or their computer lagging too much. On the right-hand side, you can see the flat pack textures. So I don't know if anyone has done any texturing before, but essentially what it is it's sort of like it's taking a cardboard box and kind of flipping it all out and then coloring those, and then the UV map will wrap back onto the object to make it look like it's got the texture attached to it. So here's another example from one of the shields I did in Dungeon Golf. So here you can see it looks very flat and very kind of dull and grey. And then here's a hand-painted texture I did. There are also things that you can use called normal maps, which help make light look like it hits it. So it gives it these extra details where it looks like it's got little divots and stuff, but you don't have to model every single element in, which again comes back to performance. And here's another example of one of the kobold characters that one of our 3D modelers made. And you can see the blank version versus the textured version just gives it so much more life and character. And then, yeah, a little breakdown about animation and rigging. So what is rigging? It's putting bones into things so that they can move and then you're able to animate them. So even things that don't actually have bones themselves, such as like this cat's eyes. See, eyes don't actually have bones, but by attaching it and sort of animating it, you're able to do things and control your model in ways that you're able to animate it and bring it to life. And then animation itself is obviously making things move and yeah, giving your character some life to it. Here's a couple of examples of using animatics. So animatics, it's like a very, very basic 2D idea where you roughly sketch out a few frames about the idea that you want to sort of get through in your animation. And then on the right-hand side, here it is with the 3D model. The reason for this is that it can be quite difficult and time-consuming to do 3D animations. So having a very clear idea from the get-go with an animatic is a great way of doing that, so you know what you're aiming for. And down below is an example of the necromancer character I showed before, and just with sort of, yeah, a few different elements of its rig being shown. So you can see like the eyes can move and the head can move and all these sort of separate elements. And then it's kind of, you move it like a sort of like a doll almost, with each kind of part keyframed, and then it all fits together to make an animation. Cool. UI, UX, and VFX. So UI is the user interface. So that's everything that the player interacts with on screen. So like that will be stuff like menus, things like indicators. So if you're not sure where you're supposed to go, like things that come up on screen. Also things like your head up display. So that's stuff like how much life you have left, like, you know, how much mana or spells that you have left, all the things that communicate information visually to players. That's all sort of covered by UI, and UX, which is a user experience. And VFX, so these are most commonly stuff like explosions, healing effects, splashes if your character's going through water. They all help to make things feel more impactful and come back to sort of visual, clear communication, so players know what they're doing, and so things feel so much more a lot cooler and a lot nicer, and like you actually have impact on the world with these VFX. So here's an example of VFX. You see the shattering pots and the smoke effect, and also the user interface of the sort of overlaid stuff to show where the player's aiming, and sort of the bound boxes around there as well, so that players know this is the character I'm aiming for, and this is how far I can go, because otherwise it can be quite hard to actually communicate that to players. With good UI, the better that it's done, the less you notice it. So it's one of these jobs that is yeah, deceptively hard to do, but having clean graphical stuff, like if you like, yeah, doing logos and headers and stuff like that as well, I think can be a good avenue to explore if that's something that interests you. Cool. And from there, marketing and illustration. So these are creating images to catch potential players' eyes, because there's quite a few games on the Steam store and more added each day. Having good, strong marketing images to catch people's attention is really, really important. So you want people at a glance to kind of understand what a game is about and the sort of thing that, yeah, might interest them to play. It also is final illustrations for in-game things such as character portraits. So here's a few from BTD6 that I did. And here are some examples from Dungeon Golf as well. So you can see the original versions where they're the 3D models, and then the paint over versions, which are clean cleaned up and tidied and at 4K resolution, so they're able to be used for a range of different marketing bits and pieces. As you can see here, this image here has been used in this marketing thing as well as an in-game portrait. And because they're all separate elements, it means that you're able to sort of create some nice layered things that are high enough resolution that it's not blurry when you look at it on the Steam store. So a little bit about how I got into games. First and foremost, it was passion. Yeah, I've always loved games, and as a kid, I watched a documentary about one of my favorite games being made, and from then it really inspired me just to really focus on getting into the industry, doing animation, and yeah, just getting involved as much as I could. I always loved drawing, making characters and worlds, so I was always kind of pushing myself to come up with different ideas for that as well. Also keep learning, especially with art stuff. It's a lifelong journey, so I'm still learning now, and I think I will be for the rest of my life. So it's exciting to kind of see it in that way, where yeah, everyone's always kind of on a journey to sort of improve, which is it's cool to be involved with. And yeah, originally I studied animation after leaving school, so I learned a lot of those 3D skills I talked about, so modeling, rigging, and animating in 3D. And from there, I worked up my portfolio, showed a range of different skills, and got a junior position. And then from there, I learned so much about actually making games on the job. So you don't have to learn everything from the get-go. Just steadily increasing stuff or following your interests, I think, is really, really important. Things I did that helped me, starting to learn the fundamentals of drawing. So that's stuff like perspective, anatomy, composition, value studies, and how they all relate to strong image making. From there, I think once you have fundamentals well practiced, it really can apply to almost anything that you do. Programs will always change. The industry does move pretty fast, but understanding the fundamentals is something that is consistent throughout. So that was something that I think has been a great help to me. Learning from your peers, so doing stuff like game jams, that is so cool, so awesome, and really, really important, I think, because it's great to be involved in communities and with other people who feel the same way about you, and you can lift each other up and learn from each other. Sharing knowledge is really, really important, not just keeping stuff to yourself, but yeah, sharing it and stuff is great, because the more that you help other people and other people help you, the better everyone can do. YouTube tips and different tutorials. I'm sure you guys know already, YouTube is such a fantastic resource for that. There's so many fantastic things, tips on how to start learning game development, start doing 3D modeling, or even doing stuff like fundamentals as well. It's pretty endless out there. So just finding like a first avenue to start with, because it can feel quite overwhelming to begin with, but just doing one thing at a time is the best way to go about it, I think. Not giving up as well. I think I've had quite a few people who say like, oh wow, like, oh, you're so lucky that you can draw, you're so lucky that you can do art. But you know, I started off being not very good at art, but because I didn't give up and because I kept sort of trying to get better and improving, that's meant that it has allowed me to improve my skills to where they are today. So Discord art communities or different communities online, there's a lot out there which you're able to access, where people can give feedback, give information, and that sort of stuff too. And most of all, have fun. Like this game jam stuff is so super cool and really, really great to sort of explore different ideas and just enjoy yourself. I'm sure you guys will be learning so much, and yeah, no, it's super important, super cool to have fun. Cool. So any questions?